This week on Christian World News, the spawn of ISIS terrorist groups around the world targeting Christians. Now a former hostage tells us his story. Plus, Cuba's church. As the doors begin to open, the island nation, we find a thriving church. And amazing, the orchestra in the dump, how recycled instruments are giving these kids new life. A pastor is delivered from death at the hands of Muslim radicals. Welcome everyone to this week's edition of Christian World News. My colleague Wendy Griffith is on assignment. The terror group ISIS has inspired extremists to commit their own atrocities in other parts of the world, including Southeast Asia. Radical Islamists there have carried out attacks against Christians. Gary Lane brings us the CBN News exclusive report from the Philippines.
After Islamic State fighters routed the Iraqi army last summer, the world realized the growing threat of ISIS. Its terror spread from Syria and Iraq to Libya and other parts of Africa, where Nigeria's Boko Haram recently pledged its allegiance. Add to this reports of operations in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and now the ISIS influence is reaching as far away as Southeast Asia. Islamic extremists want to control this area of the southern Philippines, and even though ISIS has yet to accept them into their organization, the MILF and the Islamic State have shared ideology. That includes destroying churches, kidnapping and killing Christians. Just ask missionary Pastor Daniel. He asked that we hide his face to protect him from further persecution. Last fall, Daniel and two other family members were kidnapped by a splinter group of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF.
When the two men captured me, I had a towel around my neck. One of the Muslim soldiers grabbed the towel and told me, "We will use this to wipe the blood from your neck."
They took Daniel to their camp, where he met a notorious Islamic terrorist known as Commander Tuckboy. Tuckboy said he would behead the evangelist for leading tribal people to Christ.
I told him I was only helping the tribes. There is nothing wrong with preaching the gospel while serving them. He said, "Anyone who brings the gospel of Jesus Christ and upholds the God of Israel is our enemy." I noticed his soldiers digging a hole in front of me. I heard one ask, "Do you think he will fit in this?" So I knew the grave was for me. This was it. This was my time for death.
And Pastor Daniel says Commander Tuckboy revealed his true identity.
Tuckboy asked, "Do you know me? I'm the leader of ISIS in the Mindanao Islands. The Philippine government has been hunting me for a long time." Then he showed me the ISIS flag hanging in the camp. I also saw documents that had an ISIS flag on the letterhead.
Daniel's family and friends prayed as the ordeal continued. Daniel's 10-year-old daughter Carol was among them. She tearfully told us she trusted God to deliver her father from death.
We prayed John 15:7 for Papa. If you remain in me and my words in you, ask whatever you want and it will be done for you.
The next morning, Commander Tuckboy received an urgent phone call.
Tuckboy handed me the cell phone. A big voice on the other end asked, "Are you Pastor Daniel?" I said yes. He said, "Do you know today is the date of your death?" I replied, "Yes. If Jesus Christ wills it, today is my day." Then he said, "You are lucky. We are sparing your life. You are not going to die today."
Daniel returned home with a warning. Stop evangelizing tribal people. Daniel now lives in another part of Mindanao. Foreign Ministry spokesman Charles Jose says the kidnapping does not mean ISIS is gaining a foothold in southern Philippines.
We're not exactly convinced that they're really IS. Maybe they're just jumping on the bandwagon. Most of them are, engaged in banditry and kidnap for ransom activities.
However, the Philippine government is investigating reports that potential ISIS recruits have received training in a remote village not far from Zamboanga City. Despite his near-death experience and the possibility that he could be kidnapped again, Daniel continues to share the gospel with the tribal people of Mindanao.
The incident taught me not to fear death. I saw the power of God. Jesus delivered me out of death, and it has made me bolder to serve God because I saw His power.
And Carol knows why she has her papa back.
We did not know where to find Papa, but God knew where to find him. The Lord brought him out of the camp. The Lord answered our prayers. God is so good to our family.
Gary Lane, CBN News, Mindanao, Philippines.
Gary, thank you for that excellent report. Folks, prison guards in Iran are threatening American pastor Saeed Abedini, telling him, deny Christ and become a Muslim, or you will never be free. Saeed Abedini was convicted on January 27, 2013, and condemned to 8 years in prison. Now, Iranian authorities are threatening to extend that prison sentence, something his lawyers say has been done to other Christian prisoners in the past.
They find some other way to set them up for a falsehood and try them for an additional conviction.
According to Abedini's wife, Nagme, prison guards have become increasingly hostile, reportedly tormenting the 35-year-old American pastor with constant psychological threats. In a Facebook post, Nagme writes, he has been under a lot of pressure and attack from the hardliners. The guards have also been threatening Saeed that he will never go free. They continually threaten Saeed that the only key to his freedom is denying Christ and returning to Islam. Abedini is serving his sentence in one of the toughest prisons in Iran.
This is a prison that was built for 5,000 individuals, currently housing over 20,000. So you've got incredible hygienic conditions. You've got threats from other cellmates. Certainly several of them see him as a threat right now, as Iran and the United States are negotiating this nuclear deal.
Nagme says recent prisoner executions have also taken their toll on her husband. Despite the hardships, she writes that he continues to remain strong in the faith. He wants you all to know that the Lord continues to move in that prison and lives are being transformed. They had a great Easter in prison. Saeed desperately missed being with our family on Easter, but new Easter traditions were created in prison. Over the years, this journey has truly become more difficult and painful for Saeed and for the kids and I. Our family appreciates your continued prayers. And if you would want to help Pastor Saeed, the ACLJ has a petition you can sign. You can find the link at our website, cbnnews.com. Coming up, the music of hope, how this recycled orchestra is bringing new life to a hopeless, dirty town.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Inside every child is a hero, a leader, a friend to others, someone who helps out, who does the right thing, who dreams of what they can be, but they still need our help.
What should I do? What should I say? How should I feel?
That's where Superbook comes in. It provides moral and spiritual truths through situations children can relate to, teaching God's Word to the children you love. Join the Superbook DVD Club and receive Superbook's newest episodes as they're available, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Get Superbook today and watch the miracles happen.
The young musicians in our next story have performed around the world. They've even met European royalty. Yet they live in a garbage dump in South America. Their secret? A visionary director who has taught them to turn trash into treasure. Carolina Martinez brings us this amazing story of Paraguay's Recycle Orchestra.
Cateura, on the outskirts of Asunción in Paraguay, is a community formed around the landfill. Most people here make their living by selling plastic bottles or anything they can recycle from garbage. There is trash everywhere, and poverty and lack of education are a bad combination for the future of its inhabitants. Mainly children and young people who are prone to delinquency and drugs. But for the past 6 years, a light of hope has been shining in Cateura through music, and this is how it sounds. This is the Recycle Orchestra. It's got that name because all the instruments these kids play are made with materials found in the trash. Old water pipes become saxophones. Forks, knives, spoons, and coins become the keys. Cans and bake trays are used to make violins, and percussion drums are made with X-rays and wooden pallets or trash cans. It all started with an idea of an environmental technician and music teacher to take children out of the streets and out of the landfill. Fabio Chavez, who used to be the choir master of his church, directs this innovative project.
This is a social project that uses music as a catalyst. We are working intensively with many families and many children. We propose a life change projected into the future. This is a mission. I feel God's presence. I believe things happen according to His plans.
This mission was also possible thanks to the help of a trash picker, now turned into a luthier, who was from the beginning in charge of finding the materials to manufacture the musical instruments.
Garbage is not garbage. If you have creative ideas, you can do anything with garbage.
I think we have to be grateful for the gifts we have received. And we must be responsible, because those gifts should serve others too. It's like what the Bible says. You can't hide a light under the table. The light has to be where it can illuminate everyone.
And the orchestra is illuminating Cateura. Until a couple of years ago, no one had ever heard of this place. But all that changed thanks to the trailer of a documentary film that is now being released, Landfill Harmonic. In recent years, the Recycle Orchestra has been invited to perform concerts worldwide. It has received awards from the royal crowns of the Netherlands and Spain. Fabio Chavez and the children of Cateura have given lectures at the famous TED conferences, and they are inspiring millions.
Having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing. And what we're doing is an example of that. I realize that I have nothing to envy because everything happens for a reason, and I know this is all God's work.
Andres is 20 years old and has been in the orchestra since he was 17. He has traveled to more than 20 countries for the concerts, but he dreams of staying in Cateura the rest of his life to transform it and make it a model community.
Traveling around the world opens your mind and makes you think, why can't our country be like that? Why can't our community be like that? Some people are born with everything, others are not, but everyone has to make progress in their own way. This is ours, with music, with recycling. Maybe we are changing part of our society and the mentality of our own people.
In slums like Cateura, even houses are made from recycled garbage. A normal violin would cost more than a house, but here the impossible becomes possible. And the music that comes from recycled instruments is not only giving hope to the children of this community in Paraguay, but also around the world. Following Paraguay's example, in 2014, a recycle orchestra was created in Spain, and it already has 50 children that were at risk of social exclusion. This is the first of several projects that are being inspired by Cateura. Thanks to their hard work and the concerts these kids give, they were able to buy a property where they are now building the largest conservatory in the area, with 20 classrooms to accommodate the 200 children that already attend the music school, and an amphitheater for 300 people. It would also function as a community center, with free crafts classes for all the residents of Cateura. And they are also providing scholarships so all the students have the opportunity to go to college.
The solution is not to run away from a place. The solution is to change the place. You have to have projects first, and then resources will come. It's ideas that change the world.
In Cateura, Paraguay, Carolina Martinez for CBN News.
Up next, how 35 years of early morning prayer has changed this South Korean church and its impact on their neighbors in the north.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Pentecost 2015. From the corners of the earth, believers gather in Jerusalem. Walk where Jesus walked. Pray in Gethsemane. Rejoice at the empty tomb. Don't miss messages from over 100 world-renowned speakers and a score of popular worship artists. For more information and to register for the Empowered 21 Global Congress, go to Jerusalem2015.com. This May, Jerusalem.
In Seoul, South Korea, members of the Myeongsang Church get up early every day to pray. They've been doing this for 35 years. The results? Well, it's become one of the biggest churches in the world. And as Heather Sells reports, they believe those prayers will help bring freedom to their neighbors in North Korea.
In the early morning in Seoul, South Korea, thousands of people stream out of a downtown church, passing the thousands of others who are waiting in the cold and the dark to go inside. When the signal comes, they begin streaming inside. Some, eager not to be late, scurry down the street to arrive on time. And this is why they've come. The 6 a.m. prayer service at Myeongsang Church. This is the second of 4 early morning services the church holds every day.
Christians cannot live without faith and prayer, even for a moment. I believe morning prayer is God's blessing for us, so I am joyfully attending the gathering, even though the church is far and it takes long.
Today is a special gathering, a celebration, as the church commemorates 35 years of early morning prayer. Church leaders from around the world are here for the week-long event. Reverend Samwon Kim started this church in 1980. Since then, it's grown to more than 120,000 members. He credits that success to prayer. and an unyielding commitment to historic Christian truths.
The power of church is from the gospel and the Bible, and the tradition that we inherited from the ancestors. If we preserve those values, the world will follow us, and we can lead this era.
Today, well into his 70s, Pastor Kim still leads 2 morning services. Myeonsun Church is the largest Presbyterian church in the world. It has planted 24 churches and supports more than 500 missionaries in 63 countries. The church also supports a children's home, a hospital, and other social ministries. Pastor Kim says that it's prayer that has made all this ministry possible. And he and his church believe that if they ask, God will do the same for their kinsmen in North Korea.
North Korea is in despair, but at the same time it is very hopeful in Christ. Isaiah 9 says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned." I believe the time of gospel must come to them. We need prayer to save North Korea. God will work on them through our prayer. He must liberate the land and perform the miracle to open the way in the desert for the unification of North and South.
North and South Korea have been separated for 65 years. Since the armistice was signed, South Korea has grown into a modern state with a booming economy. North Korea is one of the most isolated nations on Earth, ruled by a family of dictators who repress its people and threaten the world with nuclear holocaust. Here, on the border of North and South, people come to look into the Hermit Kingdom and to leave messages for their families on the other side.
Dear Mom and Dad, please stay peaceful in heaven. Your son Gwang Chol was here. Also, there are many messages from Koreans saying, "I hope South and North will be reunited as soon as possible."
At Myeonsun Church, the people pray passionately for reunification. Among them is a group of North Korean refugees now living in the South. Though they're free, it's hard to escape the grip of the totalitarian regime just across the border.
Actually, North Korean defectors have a trauma by the North Korean regime. We often have a nightmare of being taken to the North. Whenever I wake up in the morning, I feel the freedom, but become sorrowful thinking about my family who are living perilously without freedom in the North.
These refugees came to Christ after escaping the North, but they saw firsthand the government's persecution of Christians.
In the North, the Christians were singled out for torture. They were discovered because of their knees, because they kneeled to pray. The Christians were separated and right away sent to other places, such as concentration camp.
Still, the church in North Korea is growing. One reason is North Koreans who visit China are being converted to Christianity by missionaries on the border. And despite the risk of imprisonment or even death, some of them return to preach the gospel.
After they go back to the North, they evangelize others one by one in basement, and then the newcomers bring their families or friends as well. In this way, the gospel is being spread secretly. If this comes out, whole family will be murdered. So the churches are performing in basement, in secret, but actively.
Meanwhile, those who have found safety in the South cry out for their families in the North.
Every human being has the right to freedom, but in the North, this basic right is restricted. I am praying to God earnestly to allow this blessing for the people in the North.
Believing that these fervent prayers will avail much for the people of North Korea. Heather Sells, CBN News.
The church also helps support a Christian TV station in Seoul. In fact, our friends at C Channel broadcast CWN in Korean to some 12 million viewers there. Awesome stuff. Well, folks, we'll be back right after this.
Me that? Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Pat Robertson recently recorded a very special program to answer the question, does God still heal today?
What we're trying to do here, Scott, is to tell people how they can access the power of the living God through Jesus Christ.
Discover the answers and let your faith be encouraged.
And then Jesus spelled out of how we can have healing and how we can have miracles.
In Pat Robertson's latest DVD, Be Healed, you'll learn the biblical basis for healing today, how to exchange anxiety and worry for faith and confidence, the way to pray for your healing and healing for those you love. Plus, meet real people who've experienced the miraculous healing power of God.
The first thing I did was reached out for a lifesaver, and that was God. You know, you can put your trust in medicine, but the ultimate healing is going to have to be God.
Find out the biblical principles that lead to healing in Pat Robertson's latest teaching, Be Healed. Available now.
As relations between the United States and Cuba begin to thaw, a surprising spiritual reality is emerging. The Cuban church is thriving. As Mark Martin tells us, several denominations are reporting amazing growth.
In the midst of an oppressive regime and incredible poverty, the church in Cuba is exploding. In the past 20 years, Baptist churches have grown from several hundred to more than 7,000. Assemblies of God churches once numbered less than 100, and now more than 10,000 are proclaiming the gospel.
The church not only survived, but in the midst of those pressures and difficulties, it grew. It grew solid.
At the core of Cuba's church growth, house churches across the island. That's because back in the 1990s, the Cuban government told churches they could not build any new buildings. The effect? Church growth became very, very easy as Christians simply began meeting in homes. CBN News producer and Latin American expert Stan Jeter recently visited Cuba on a missions trip and explains the phenomenon.
Since they didn't have to focus on building a church or having a property, they were free to just go ahead and evangelize and start meeting in someone else's home.
Believe it or not, many also believe that Cuba's poverty has fueled its church growth. With many Cubans existing on less than $30 a month, there's simply not the money to pursue entertainment, hobbies, or other pursuits that would pull them from the gospel.
One church leader told me that is one of the reasons that church members spend so much time in church activities. They can spend more time evangelizing their neighbors because they're not distracted by a lot of material goods.
Church leaders say one fruit of all this growth is an emerging missions movement in Cuba. Hundreds of believers are considering or planning to head overseas as missionaries, and given their single-minded focus and long-term experience with hardship, they may be uniquely qualified to travel to new lands to spread the gospel. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Well, terrific stories from around the world, folks. I really hope that you've enjoyed this week's edition of Christian World News. Until next week, goodbye and God bless you.